also say getting used to it. Getting used to it. Familiarizing yourself with it. So then the question, of course, becomes, well, what's it? And that seems to be based on a belief that we have had, each of us, by and large, we have had very profound experiences of connection, of clarity, of love, of understanding, but we don't tend to be awfully used to them. If something happens and we think, what was that? Or, I don't think I'll tell anyone about that. Or maybe I'll tell everyone about that. Or, I don't know how to get it back. I'm kind of desperate. Whatever it is, we don't necessarily live there. So another way of understanding this entire path is we're going to be able to abide in those deep places we have already had. It's not like they're so foreign, removed, abstract, impossible to imagine for any one of us. We've been there, but so fleetingly. And with so much confusion, a lack of integration, you could say, of that kind of experience into our being. So we're going to get used to it. And the path, interestingly, as described classically, starts often, because there's a whole cultural context there, it often starts with different things we can do in order to relieve some of that sense of narrowness, of constraint, of being ineffective, of being not enough. Because the more we put that kind of thing into place, just the easier the next steps become. So classically, the path of practice is actually said to begin with generosity. Because, as the Buddha said, we all have something to give. It doesn't have to be an immense amount of, objective wealth. We can smile at somebody. We can pay attention to them more fully. We can maybe give a material offering that we're able to do. We all have something to give, and the act of giving, that kind of relinquishing, fills us with a kind of joy when we actually look. There's an example of that, which would be sometimes like members of a community will try to help reinforce that in one another, with one another. So one kind of resolve people sometimes take is when a strong impulse to give something arises in your mind, and not unreasonable. I don't know what an unreasonable example would be here, particularly in New York City. I always say, you never give away your rent control department. Ever. Doesn't matter. So I'm sure there's something, right? So it's not like you're giving so much that you're going to hurt your family or, things are going to go all awry. But when a strong impulse to give something arises in your mind, and it's okay, it's within reasonable boundaries, give it. Even though the next 50 thoughts might be, oh no, I will get around to reading it. It has been sitting in that pile for 2 years, but the time is bound to come. I might need it next year, or whatever it might be. So maybe there's the impulse to give, then there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and hesitation, and then there's the act of giving, because you've decided for that period of time that's your practice. It's very interesting just to observe all of those different states of being. What does it feel like to have that generous impulse? What does it feel like to want to withhold and clench and just, close down around something? What does it feel like to let go? What does it feel like in the offering? And so it's that kind of understanding that helps reinforce the wisdom that we all have something to give, and it will give us a kind of buoyancy, a sense of relief almost, in that act of giving. So that's where the path actually begins, classically. And from there it moves to a sense of ethics or morality, which is also considered a kind of giving. It's said to be giving the gift of fearlessness to others. We know how each of us feels when we're talking to somebody and we just know they're not deceitful, they're not going to exaggerate, they're not going to hide things. And that there's such a sense of genuine communication, even if it's not always pleasant, it's real. And there is often such a sense of safety within that realness. It's like, okay. And for any one of us, if we're the ones committing to, say, being more truthful, as the Buddha put it, he said, say that which is true and that which is useful. So there's that part of it too. It's like, don't give away your rent-controlled apartment. You don't have to say everything that comes up in your mind. But there is a certain sense of joy and simplicity that comes when you know. And we all probably know, even if it was, a long time ago, where we were kind of shading the truth and things were a little bit hidden, and it could be as simple as saying something really, really nasty about somebody to someone else, and then having that particular person walk in the door, and the way your stomach just drops, and you think, did they hear me? Especially if it wasn't true. And then you have to remember, what did I say? Because maybe I'll have to bolster that, tonight, and then maybe I should tell a few other people. So there's a whole group of people who believe this thing, and what did I tell them? And it's the complexity of life that that's not grounded in truthfulness. That again, if we pay attention, we just feel the tremendous pain of that, and the cloudiness of that, and the disturbance of that. So we move from generosity to ethics, to trying to have a life that's clear, it's simpler, and that it's more straightforward. We're not so frightened of the consequences of our actions. We have more, again, it's a kind of buoyancy and openness and flexibility, energetically, of our being, because we're kind of in alignment instead of being out of harmony with things. And based on that, we talk about practices like loving kindness meditation, things that are really relational, to remind ourselves that not only do we want to be happy, everybody wants to be happy. Not only are we vulnerable to change and loss and just the flow of life, everybody is. That we are part of a bigger picture of things. And actually, maybe I'll do with you my very favorite reflection, which is, for a few moments now, just see who comes to mind as you think about who all is involved in your sitting here in this room right now. Just see who pops up. Somebody give you a book, or tell you about their meditation practice, or tell you about this program, or read you a poem, or play you a piece of music. Who all comes to mind? Because really nobody was walking down the street, I would bet, and just thought, I'm going to go in that building and see what's there.